Homage to Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to Manjushri Wisdom Courage. Homage to the greatly kind lineage master. The subtle Dharma rarely seen. See, get up, hold it. Understand Tathagata, meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings, please give rise to the unsurpassed and supreme bodhicitta. Next, let's take a moment to discuss and talk about the words of my perfect teacher. Within the section called the preliminary practices, careful attention is given to the manner in which one listens to the Dharma, as listening with focus and respect is considered. Among the ways of listening to the Dharma, there are 6 kinds of stains. Now, we are discussing the 5th type, which specifically refers to being inwardly withdrawn. If, when listening to the Dharma, we only grasp the individual meanings of words in the teachings, it will be like a bear digging for a marmot in the snow, gaining one thing, yet losing another. It is impossible to have a truly complete understanding of everything in this way. Here, as we have already previously mentioned, when practicing or listening to the Dharma, we must never let our minds scatter outward. If our minds are scattered outward, reaching away from ourselves, then the meaning of the Dharma can never truly and fully be received by us in a true sense in our hearts and minds. This principle has already been explained before. The 5 sense consciousnesses, including in particular the external objects of the mind consciousness, when listening to the Dharma, we must not become attached to or distracted by external objects. This is very important. In our daily practice, as ordinary people, external distractions, even the slightest occurrence of something outside can cause our minds to wander. However, as many of those who have studied Mahayana Buddhism in particular, especially those who understand the proper way to listen to the Dharma, when practicing and listening to the Dharma, use right knowledge and mindfulness. This is absolutely crucial. Then, when we practice, we also shouldn't become overly withdrawn in any way, inwardly, deep inside ourselves. If we turn inward too much, different people will have different feelings. Some may think they need to be very extremely focused and extremely deeply concentrated at all times. Sometimes the concentration goes too far. For example, you might simply latch onto one thing or one concept and always try to completely and thoroughly understand it to the very best of your ability, or put all your effort into that one particular aspect of practice. Really focus on it, giving it your full attention. Nowadays, some people practice wind, channels, and drops, and their minds become overly attached over and over again. In the end, the body becomes uncomfortable, and sometimes the mind is also uneasy. Eventually, all kinds of obstacles and adverse conditions may arise. This can happen too. Therefore, during our practice, in fact, it is extremely important to keep the mind properly adjusted and balanced. That's why it is said here, when we are listening to the teachings, tightly, particularly attentively, excessively, focusing too much on a particular word or meaning, or fixating on one thing, then perhaps you'll only remember that one particular point, the specific detail that stood out to you most, but you might not remember all the important teachings and lessons clearly at first. So the way we listen to the teachings is very important. If you remember one thing and don't care about anything else, then your understanding will not be comprehensive. In that case, it's just like a well-known saying in the world, as people often say, which goes, just like a big bear digging for a hidden snow piglet. Bears, this story, which is quite common and widely recognized among the people of Tibetan area, is one that has been told and retold for generations. It is a tale that is frequently... On the one hand, bears like to dig burrows, often using their strong claws to carefully create a space in the ground. Once they have finished digging, they will crawl inside, and on the other hand, when they encounter something they dislike, they will fight with it or even kill it. In this process, sometimes the bear digs for the snow piglet, which is what we usually call a marmot. If the marmot is dug out, because when winter comes, as is their usual habit, marmots basically don't come out at all during the absolutely entire 3 winter months. They have a natural, instinctive kind of meditative absorption. So many practitioners who don't think about anything are compared to marmots. When the marmot is still in its underground burrow, the bear has already gone ahead and dug it out. After digging them out, because there are often so many marmots, whole families of them hibernate together in the burrow, sleeping while they're asleep, The large bear grabs one and first gives it a very hard, powerful punch with its big, strong fist, then gently puts it right under its butt before continuing to dig. As it continues digging, because it just punched the marmot. The marmot has already woken up, and once it's awake, the marmot quickly runs away. Then it digs again, captures another one, and repeats the same process as before, just like before. It spends day digging for marmots, snow pigs. But in the end, after all, it is only able to successfully manage to keep the one in its hand. Apart from this, basically none to speak of, really. It seems like there's a similar well-known and oft-told folk story in the Han regions about a black bear picking corn. Maybe it's actually pretty much the exact same idea, you know. I guess the bear carefully picks up a golden ear of corn and slowly, gently hides it under its armpit, then picks another one, and so on. But in the end, it still gets nothing at all, except for the one that it already holds in its hand. This is also a foolish approach. Some of us practice like this. We can only hold on to one thing. If you don't consider anything else, then what you managed to grab just now is all you have. It's the same listening to a lecture. For example, you focus with great intensity but not comprehensively in this situation. You concentrate hard on one thing. For example, when I'm actually giving you a lecture, perhaps in a classroom setting, when I tell a story, you focus intently and store it in your mind, but you've already forgotten about the previous cases. If you keep on going like this, when I mention the last verse, you'll remember that and by the end of class, everything from before will be gone. So this analogy is really just like the previous one. That's why when practicing, it's really important to carefully adjust your mindset. At the very beginning, right, you won't even listen to the basic principles of Buddhism. For quite a long time, you need to learn how to properly listen to the teachings. For example, how to remember what I say, how to read the texts. And after reading the texts, how to combine your understanding, book meanings, and what bringing these three things together is what's truly so important. Otherwise, some people, when the master is lecturing, don't read the texts at all and just listen passively. They have no idea what content the book is following. There are people like this as well. Some people just focus intently on listening all the time, but never look at the book at all. Of course, there are also some people who pay no attention to the content in the book or to what the master is teaching and just keep their heads down, doing their own thing. Some even might, in fact, be meditating while the class is in session, right in front of the Dharma teacher. They sit in the 7-point posture of Vairocana and meditate Tammo. For those unfamiliar with listening to Dharma teachings, it was common. This is really quite strange, because at that time, you're supposed to be carefully reading the book while thoughtfully integrating it with your own understanding. There was once someone called, I've also heard of him, Khenpo Jinwang, a notable figure, who, when he first started teaching us, mentioned this. You all need to carefully train yourselves for a period of time. Otherwise, if you listen, you won't understand. So nowadays, some new monastics and new lay practitioners, when it comes to our Dharma classes compared to secular teachers' classes, in terms of style and approach, there are some differences. They're not necessarily exactly the same. So adapting to the etiquette here does take some time. As you might expect, it's not immediate. Therefore, we sincerely hope that nowadays, whether it's many monastics or in particular some lay practitioners in big cities, although the atmosphere for studying is quite good, the discipline of listening to the Dharma is very important. We should follow standards we discussed. How do we eliminate the so-called three faults? How do we counteract the 6 stains? If we can address these issues, well, then the Dharma that the Master expounds should be able to truly integrate into our hearts. As mentioned earlier, when upholding the Dharma, sometimes being too inwardly withdrawn can also, in fact, bring certain difficulties. In this way, you grasp one thing and let go of another. It's basically impossible to fully comprehend everything for yourself. Therefore, we must first carefully observe our own mental continuum. Also, as mentioned here, if you are overly withdrawn. Various problems, such as drowsiness and sleepiness, can also arise, which may make it harder to stay alert and focused during the day and could interfere with your ability to complete daily tasks efficiently. It is also mentioned in the letter to a friend that the 5 obstacles, such as drowsiness, are actually thieves that rob us of the wealth of virtuous qualities. So during our practice, sometimes being too distracted outwardly or too withdrawn inwardly, these 2 extremes are, in fact, truly significant and major obstacles, real barriers that we often encounter in our spiritual practice. Some great masters and accomplished practitioners of the past, because they studied for many years, eventually came to fully understand for themselves which things are obstacles and which are adverse conditions for practice. These issues can be entirely and thoroughly eliminated during practice. So it is essential to consistently maintain at all times a proper and healthy balance between tension and relaxation. Because some Dharma friends are often very enthusiastic and passionate when they study and engage with the teachings, and later on they become especially diligent. At the very beginning, they might not sleep or eat at all, not even a little, especially during those first few days, neglecting sleep and food, practicing diligently day and night. But after a certain period of time, they tend to become overly relaxed and comfortable again. When they are especially diligent, basically within a single day, they might only sleep 3 or 4 hours, being extremely diligent and hardworking. And even if people around them tell them, don't be intense, bad for your health, they still won't listen. Then, after some time, they become too relaxed, too slack. Except for 3 or 4 hours, they sleep the rest of the time. So it ends up being 2 extremes, which is honestly really quite unreasonable in the end. A few days ago, when I was just talking about the preliminary practice manual, I mentioned one knows spiritual practice lasts a lifetime, if not done in a day. Some practitioners seem to feel very anxious. I haven't encountered Buddhism. They must achieve enlightenment instantly or get a spiritual response instantly. But this is not necessarily achievable because, after all, as we know, spiritual practice is a long-term undertaking. You can't expect immediate results from attending university 2 or 3 days. Therefore, everyone must absolutely and truly understand this principle in order to apply it correctly. It's also unreasonable to be overly relaxed. You should require yourself not to slack off. Every day, you should devote the appropriate amount of time to your practice. But you also really shouldn't be excessively diligent. If you push yourself too hard, as mentioned here about internal withdrawal, whether you are listening to teachings as the Guru gives Dharma, at that time you should maintain a sense of relaxation. Don't be overly anxious, nervous, or impatient. Just try to remain calm and composed. Otherwise, sometimes practitioners may, in their work, encounter problems. So in our daily lives, each and every day, there are many fascinating and related stories all about the Buddha. There are quite a few stories emphasizing that you shouldn't be too tense or too relaxed. The story of Drasangay in the preliminary practices. Actually, there are also many such stories in the Buddhist scriptures, Samyukta Agama Sutra and Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra. In the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, there is a story about someone named Sranakotikarna. This resembles the story of Drasangay. According to the principles of the Vinaya Sutra, the comparison is generally quite close. He is also known as Shaluna, a name he is sometimes referred to by. In fact, he became a monk in front of Venerable Katyayana. After about a year had passed, Venerable Katyayana, recognizing his sincere commitment, officially ordained him as a bhikshu. At that time, 10 bhikshus were required to complete the quorum. Later, a message was sent to request the Buddha's permission. Is it possible to confer the full ordination with just 5 bhikshus? During this process, he actually had the opportunity to meet the Buddha. When he met the Buddha, the Enlightened One, at that significant and transformative moment, Sranakotikarna are all around the Buddha, simply walking around the pagoda, just doing these kinds of things over and over again. While doing these things, because of the Sranakotikarna all around us, in his previous life, he had offered sheepskin and other things to others. The reason for doing this good deed, that for 91 kalpas he was always someone with abundant wealth. Moreover, the soles of his feet were covered with hair, and the skin was very soft and delicate. Later, during the process of ritual circumambulation, his feet would often bleed as a result. The Buddha gave him special permission with great consideration, saying that he was a rather extraordinarily unique monk. Originally in Indian Buddhism, monks practiced barefoot asceticism. But for you, just this once, an exception can be made. You are allowed to wear shoes with a sole. In other words, such shoes are indeed permitted to be worn, and you may use them without any restriction. But at that time, as you may recall, Shonakottikana was decidedly unwilling. He was proud, though the Buddha granted him permission. He said solemnly and respectfully in front of the Buddha, in a very sincere and soft voice, "I have already given up precisely 80 cartloads of gold ingots, as well as 7 grand elephants, each a symbol of strength and majesty, together with a wealth of other treasures and riches that were highly valued at the time." Indeed, when he was actually born, his family possessed a great deal of gold. Later, his father was also very pleased indeed and generously offered him a lot of wealth. But he refused all of it and became a monk. He said, "I had so much gold, but I didn't want any of it. I have given it all up." Now, there's no way I'd get attached to a pair of shoes. I would never give up my practice for a shoe. Soul, I don't need it. He was especially diligent and attentive in his actions, always showing great care and persistence. And later, the Buddha did not say anything more about the matter, remaining silent. He practiced there for some time. Because he was so diligent, some Dharma friends might be like this too. When he first arrived, he was overly diligent. He wouldn't even eat, had no time for anything. It was a bit extreme. Later, he didn't experience any spiritual responses or attainments. When he saw that he really wasn't making any significant progress in his practice, despite all his efforts and dedication, he started to feel, "I'm from a wealthy family. I should return to lay life and enjoy my comfortable life. Go back and enjoy my truly happy and deeply fulfilling life. Once again, I can be a lay practitioner and still make offerings to the monastic community." Practicing like this better, he really wanted to continue his practice in a much more relaxed way. At this point, the Buddha knew about it through his supernatural powers. In the end, after some consideration, he had a monk quietly call him over to his side. In front of the Buddha spoke to him, essentially telling him a case that was directly related to him. He asked, "When you were at home, weren't you quite skilled at playing the lute?" He replied, "Yes." As our discussion was coming to a close, I decided it was important to get a clear answer, so I asked him directly whether the string he said, "It's neither of them, so the practice should also be like this." This story is basically the same as the one in the preliminary practices. Through this method, by diligently practicing, he eventually attained the fruit of our hardship. In the Agama Sutras and the Mahaprajna Paramita Sastra, there are records of such a case. Here, perhaps the names and descriptions of some venerables are slightly different in some minor ways, but the story is essentially for the most part the same. Mentioned here that in the past, when Venerable Ananda was teaching Dushinji to practice, at that time, Dushinji was sometimes, even frequently, overly tense and anxious, and sometimes, at times, he was extremely lax. In the end, he was unable to give rise to any meditative state. Because sometimes he was too tense and other times too relaxed, he ended up giving up completely. Nowadays, practitioners do indeed have this kind of fault, so we must certainly pay very close attention to it. So he went to the Buddha to seek guidance. Then the Buddha asked Dushinji, "When you were at home, were you perhaps skilled at playing the pipa?" "This instrument is basically the same, the pipa." He replied at the time that he was extremely skilled, and the Buddha continued to ask him, "The wonderful sound you make when you play the piano is produced when the strings are extremely tight, or when the strings on the instrument are extremely loose, slack, or even hanging." After asking these two questions, then Dushinji, who indeed had experience in this area, because if the strings are simply too tight, the sound produced will be sharp and screechy. Creak, creak. It's impossible. I'm not good at it myself. Many of our Dharma friends here actually can play. When we're at home, we should also ask one by one, but some people say, no, I really can't. I just know how to eat. That's all. I only know how to eat ribs. I only know how to eat pig's feet. I only know how to eat this or that. Absolutely nothing else at all. That is all I know how to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's simply the truth. Then Dushinji said, well, it's neither of those situations. Only when the strings are tuned to just the right tension can they produce a beautiful and pleasant sound. The Buddha said, cultivating the mind is the same as this. You can't be too lax or too tense. This really is a crucial issue. Every one of us has this problem. At the very beginning, we often tend to have the problem of being too tense. This is something we must watch. When we first start learning Buddhism or become monastics at that time, for 2 or 3 days, we really are especially diligent. This includes ourselves. When we first started learning Buddhism, felt nothing. But when we first became monastics, actually, then our wrong views were also quite strong. When we saw some older lamas regarding discipline and conduct, if they were off the Dharma, we think monastic is that? Now that I am a monastic, I must do everything properly and follow the Dharma. These wandering shramanas, they've been monastics years. What are they doing? Their behavior, the way they speak. At that time, a lot of wrong views would arise. I also felt very arrogant myself and placed particular emphasis on deportment, paying special attention to the rules regarding appearance. Now, some lay practitioners are like this too. When they first start learning Buddhism after just 2 or 3 days, they start admonishing this person, that person, even lecturing and criticizing their master. You should be like this. Our Buddhism is such and such. Discuss principles. But some practitioners, the longer and more diligently they study over time or dedicate themselves to study, but these people, those who are especially diligent and serious at the very beginning, gradually start to slip. In the end, they don't even look at the Dharma texts, and their conduct too ends up being totally out of line with the teachings. This phenomenon really does exist. Therefore, in our daily practice, whether we are at work, at home, or in public, everyone must pay careful and consistent attention to this matter, as neglecting it could lead to unwanted consequences. So here, as you can clearly see, it says that because Dushinji, at that time, practiced properly and truthfully according to the Buddha's instructions, he was neither too tense nor too relaxed, really. He practiced in a balanced way, consistently day after day, year after year. Many practitioners are like this. Those who achieve realization and reach very high states, these people are the same every day. They were like this 10 years ago, and they are still like this 20 years later. Such sustained long-term effort over time produces very significant and obvious results. It's not something achieved in a day or two. It's not like that at all. So maintaining diligence and listening to the teachings over a long period is indeed very important. Later on, he ultimately attained true realization. In fact, this case, there is also mention of this in the Sutra of 42 chapters. The beginning is basically quite similar to the account in this case. Later, the Buddha also said, the same is true for the ascetic who studies the way. If the mind is adjusted, the way will be achieved. If the mind is properly regulated and brought into a state of calm and focus, then the way or the true path. If the mind is not regulated and becomes too agitated, then the body will quite naturally become fatigued. If the body is exhausted, the mind will become vexed. Once the mind is vexed, your aspiration for the way will gradually fade away. In the end, this leads to the creation of all kinds of negative karma. In the Sutra of 42 chapters, specifically regarding this aspect, the principle that the mind must be kept in a state of proper balance, see neither too tense nor too relaxed, is explained clearly. When it is convenient for us practitioners in our daily work, there are some detailed key points about this case, as well as in the Agama Sutra and the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra that I mentioned earlier. If you review these teachings carefully and repeatedly, you will find many different key methods for adjusting the mind within them. It should be explained this way in the secular world as well. The Book of Rites said, alternating tension and relaxation is the way of kings Wen and Wu. People in the world also say this. For example, when using a bow to shoot arrows, whether in practice or in competition, it cannot be drawn too tight, nor can it be too loose, as proper tension is essential. If the tension and relaxation are balanced appropriately throughout the body at all times as they should be, That is exactly the best method used by King Wen and King Wu to govern the country. This is explained clearly. Therefore, in the process of daily practice, it is essential to have a key method. Without such a method, you see, any matter in the world is like this as well. For example, whether it's the management of a business or the management of monasteries, if the managers are perhaps just too strict, everything is done strictly in accordance with all relevant law and requirements, and all the rules and frameworks are made very clear. Things might get rigid, people inside, none of them can stand it, they won't be able to stay and will all leave. If you are too lax, the organization will be chaotic and lack direction. No one would want to stay there as there are no rules at all. So if things are too loose, that doesn't work either. That's why I truly rejoice in some aspects of the Guru Rinpoche's approach, not just in terms of his balanced approach to practice, but even just in management. His monastery leadership and modern psychology is a set of rules that is quite suitable and practical to implement. In this regard, in the future, whether it's in many different Buddhist centers or among secular workers in the community, one must be moderate and know where to draw the line. This is very important at all times. If you are too harsh in this world, people will see you as a demon king. That doesn't work. If you are soft, others will treat you like cow dung, not even seeing you as a person at all. So that won't work either. Therefore, a person advice on rules of kings. If you manage others, in order to truly thrive, you need to have both a wrathful side and a peaceful side, because balancing these two, no matter what level of realization you have attained inwardly, if you are able to make these kinds of thoughtful and intentional adjustments in your behavior by carefully considering your actions and making conscious choices to improve the way you respond to different situations, you'll be taking an important step toward positive personal growth and development. Then it is simply convenient to do anything. In the same way, this also applies to your own spiritual practice. You can't be too lax. If you are too lax, then you will always be scattered and unfocused, and that won't work either. Indeed, there are some people in the world today who spend all day eating, drinking, and playing around in a daze, not resembling a real person, which is very pitiful. Some are too tight. If it's too tight, of course, we also rejoice in the diligence of some people. But this kind of diligence, as you might expect, simply cannot realistically be sustained for long periods of time. In the Institute, there was a male volunteer practitioner. When he first arrived from about 50 meters outside my courtyard, he started prostrating all the way over. I tried to persuade him not to, told him not to prostrate, but he kept prostrating all the way, and his head was bleeding a lot. He said, "From today on, I will rely upon you. I will do all your Dharma propagation and work for sentient beings. I'll take it myself. I am truly, absolutely determined, without a doubt, to become an exceptionally excellent disciple." At the time, I thought he was a bit too eager, which wasn't very good. Later, his skills improved and many tasks were entrusted to him. Later on, maybe he got tired or something, I'm not sure, but he became too relaxed. After that, a lot of his behavior, I can't really describe it. It was completely different from before, just really very. So for people, that's true. If someone is crying and making a fuss at first and seems very diligent, you can't necessarily trust that. Whether they can maintain that diligence in the long run, you have to observe yourself and see how you really are. Generally, people are like this even in learning Buddhism. It's the same with work or life in the secular world as well. This also includes some secular relationships. At first, things are especially good. Some time ago, as you may already know, among our local villagers, it was reported that they had only just gotten married last year, with their wedding being a joyful and memorable occasion for everyone involved. The two families, who've always shared a very good relationship, are known to get along. In Tibet, it's not like Han areas. There are two tents, and during the New Year, your family has your tent, mine has mine. But during the New Year, because these two families were so enthusiastic, so the two tents, this almost never happened in history, but during the New Year, the two tents were set up together, and then everyone would eat my bowl and I would eat yours, which was close into. But after a few months, all kinds of conflicts started to arise. In the end, everything turned out very, very absolutely and truly incredibly badly. Many of the elders could see that the two families were too enthusiastic this year and predicted that something inauspicious might happen next year. Many elders could already foresee this. It's the same for us. Practitioners, some experienced practitioners can tell this person is too relaxed, very. That person is too tense, which is also bad. But this person is consistent every day, year in and year out. They're like this hearing teachings, and in daily practice, they never go to extremes either. So this is indeed very important. Practice must be sustained over a long period of time. As mentioned in the previous case, indeed, our practice should be orderly and methodical, as always, of course. We should proceed gradually and not be impatient for quick results or rush things. Otherwise, our practice may not be very successful and truly meaningful or effective. So we must therefore pay very close attention to this. Ma Shiklab Drön, a highly respected Tibetan Buddhist teacher known for founding the Cho tradition, also conveyed this same message in her teachings, highlighting its importance just as others have done. It is important to remember, neither too tight nor too loose. One must truly possess and maintain the right, balanced view in all things. I've spoken about Ma Shiklab Drön before as well. In Tibet, she is a very famous Dakini of the shared tradition. She followed Padampa Sangye. She later fully realized and attained the emptiness of Prajnaparamita teachings. In Tibetan, the lineage she transmitted is practiced by all the different schools. There are also many Terma treasures hidden in sacred mountains, which were later discovered by great masters and eminent monks. This kind of occurrence is quite common. However, regarding her era, some historical accounts differ. For example, some historical records state that she was born in 1103 AD, and later, according to some accounts, passed away in 1204 AD. This is one version. Various historical records and documents, including accounts from respected historians, indicate that her year of birth was 1031, as preserved in historical writings and sources from the past. So there are some differences in the historical accounts. But regardless, it is true that Tibet truly does most certainly have remarkable beings of great compassion who, through the union of compassion and the realization of emptiness, guide countless sentient beings, even including worldly beings such as the 8 classes of deities and Nagas. All of this was accomplished by offering her own body, uniting emptiness and compassion. She subdued and tamed them. She was such a great accomplished master. In the teachings she left for future generations, she said, whether we are listening to teachings or practicing, we should not be too tense. If we are too tense, just as mentioned earlier, problems will arise. Now, why is it that some people in retreat are always fixated on one thing? Both their body and mind become unhealthy. When they come out, bloodshot eyes and long hair, so no one dares to meet them. This shows they were too tense. Some people, on the other hand, are too relaxed. They end up not even staying in retreat and come out. After coming out, they go to the city, and whether it's the Dharma, the law of cause and effect, or anything else, none of it exists in their eyes. It's all like empty space to them. These people are too relaxed. There are especially many people these days who, in particular, are just too relaxed. So being too tense isn't good, and too relaxed isn't good. Not too tight, not too loose, just moderate, and very, very earnest. A practitioner like this possesses a profound and essential understanding. Not too tight and not too loose, a deep secret lies here. In the past, it is known that Saraha also said, if the mind is tightly and firmly bound, then gently and patiently loosen it, in order to ultimately attain true and lasting liberation, freedom. There is such a verse. If the bondage in your mind has already been loosened, let it go. Then you can truly attain liberation. What exactly does this mean? Some of us cling to things inside our hearts and feel anxious. I can't achieve realization now. Anxious. Master, could you please, if you don't mind, hit me with a stick right away if possible? I'm dying to be enlightened. I haven't studied Buddhism for over 20 years and only started today. I've missed so many classes now, and there are so many teachings I haven't heard yet. Many realizations still haven't manifested as of yet. I must awaken my third eye immediately. I'm extremely anxious. Some people even bang their heads against the wall, sometimes repeatedly, hoping to open their third eye, but this is not always possible. So for some of us, true spiritual practice really does take time. I sincerely hope that those who are just beginning to study Buddhism won't be overly impatient or anxious, no matter what. It's a very good thing that you have now encountered the Dharma. But if you try to eat an entire pot full in one bite, it's going to be difficult. You need to take it step by step. This way, these realizations will also quite naturally continue to remain and arise in your continuum. Therefore, in the process of our study, as a result, just as Magyo Rinpoche mentioned earlier, we need to practice continuously over the long term. I've seen that whether in Tibet or in Han regions, these great monks and accomplished masters have truly spent 10 or 20 years working hard year after year, as if every day is the same. Only then can you truly gain a lot. It's not about being extremely diligent for just one day, for example, when you receive an empowerment from your teacher, or being very diligent for just a couple of classes or a few books. That doesn't really count. This, however, doesn't necessarily lead to immediate liberation. In this regard, I sincerely hope that everyone can have a thoughtful and well-considered long-term plan in their hearts for the days and years ahead. Only then can your practice be successful. Therefore, the mind should neither be too tight and withdrawn inward, nor too loose and scattered outward. You need to achieve a balance not too loose, not too tight, just right so that all your senses can truly rest at ease. In your daily life, you shouldn't be too tense, nor too relaxed. Whether it's every moment or every day, you should carry out all your practice and daily spiritual tasks properly and truthfully. At times, you still need to relax a little. Don't be overly rigid in your mind about this. Some of us are actually very good at relaxing. No need advised relaxation like Mipham, described in Lamp for Definitive Understanding. I've told some Dharma friends, you need to take care of your health. Don't be overly diligent. And they reply, oh, Lama, you don't need to remind me about this. I have no problem relaxing. I only have two main characteristics. One is sleeping and the other is eating. For these two things, I really don't need any spiritual teacher to guide me. So for many people out there, it's really genuinely important to be able to relax from time to time, especially for those individuals who are in retreat or for those who are just now beginning to study Buddhism. At times like this, everyone tends to feel anxious inside. They are determined to attain realization, but in those moments, it's important to gradually relax the mind. There should be a genuine sense of happiness, ease, calm, and leisure in the heart. When you are like this, your practice will succeed. Otherwise, you might feel that I have to study this and that, not okay if I don't. In the end, you wear yourself out physically over and over again and become even more anxious mentally. The more anxious you get, the less you are able to accomplish anything. For example, people handling things, when they're dealing, they get very anxious. When anxious, I've seen people, they just run around in circles all the time and are unable to get anything done. So our minds are exactly the same. We absolutely must have this kind of instruction without question, especially in our curriculum. This is the fifth defilement. Next, I'll talk about the sixth, weariness. When you are listening to the Dharma, it is important that you do not allow yourself to feel tired, weary, or bored at any point. Instead, try to, for example, when the teaching goes on for a long time and you start to feel unbearably hungry, or when you find yourself exposed to strong winds, heavy rain, or the intense heat of the scorching sun for an extended period of time, which can make you feel uncomfortable and even put your health at risk, you absolutely must not become annoyed or irritated. Otherwise, you may become unwilling to continue listening to the Dharma and abruptly give up. Some people in the world today do exactly this, because sometimes when you are listening to the Dharma, the session lasts a particularly long time, and at that point you haven't eaten yet and start to feel a bit hungry. Or maybe you don't have anything to drink and your mouth gets dry or even parched. Or, for example, during the teaching, there might be a storm or perhaps a blazing, scorching sun, and so on, such as other weather conditions. In Tibet, situations like this used to be extremely common, including US when we came to the Institute for classes. The Dharma hall, where the teacher gave lectures every day, was quite dilapidated, but at least it could really keep out the rain and shield us from most things. But when we taught or received transmissions ourselves in our own experience, basically for about 10 years or so, we were outside under the scorching sun or in storms. I often think back quite fondly to those days when we were tutoring together At that time, when I was tutoring, there were probably, I would say, 70 or 80 people below me. Once, in winter, His Holiness the Dharma King gave a teaching on the Pramanavartika. During winter, we were all in a courtyard, and in that courtyard, it was snowing above us, and the ground below was just bare earth. It was very cold. None of these were really big problems, after all, because everyone, without exception, could endure it for the sake of the Dharma. Not like people now, who, even in a nice shrine hall, still need to have a cushion. There was no need for that. We didn't have any cushions at all. We just sat directly on the ground. There was absolutely nothing at all covering us above either, and it just kept on snowing heavily. The snow kept falling without stopping. But when the wind blew, all the books in our book folders were blown away by the wind, and we had to search for them everywhere. Honestly, situations like this happen quite often. But at that time, perhaps people's resilience kept growing stronger and stronger, thinking of ascetic practices of great masters of the past. When we recalled great masters sacrificing for the Dharma, remembered those stories, we felt that this was something very honorable and joyful. It wasn't like people then, I have difficulty walking now. I am here. I can't even sit on the concrete floor for a while, not even for any length of time. In big cities, people tend to be more particular about things. It's not like this. But here, if the teaching session goes on for a long time, in that case, you really must not let yourself become impatient or annoyed. Some might think, this teacher keeps rambling on. What is he even talking about? Class should end earlier. People don't have enough merit from their past lives. Actually, the longer you spend listening to the Dharma, the better. But for those listening to the teachings, it might not feel that way. Of course, some speakers are very engaging and time seems to pass quickly. Some speakers, on the surface, may seem a bit long-winded. This does happen. But regardless, in essence, everything they teach is the Dharma. And this Dharma is truly extremely rare and precious. So no matter how long the teaching lasts, you really shouldn't feel annoyed or impatient. Nowadays, many people don't teach much, and there are very few opportunities to listen. I may have mentioned this before as well. National Master Qing Liang once gave 50 lectures on the Avatamsaka Sutra. The Avatamsaka Sutra has 80 volumes, and at that time he taught for 8 hours every day. Among friends, rare cases exist. After speaking for an hour or two, I still feel, to be honest, actually a little tired. This kind of situation does exist. So the strength of people's minds varies greatly. In the past, whether Master Daochuan was teaching others or carefully and attentively listening to the teachings of others, he always maintained his unwavering focus. He also taught the Dharmaguptaka Vinaya more than 20 times, according to accounts. In the past, Master Tsongkhapa was probably the most accomplished sutra teacher in Tibetan history. Once upon a time, many great masters and geshes, who were highly respected, gathered together in assembly to carefully analyze and thoroughly study important matters, to determine which monk or master in Tibet taught most Dharma. In the end, after much consideration, they ultimately declared that it was Huishi-Zi, who is also known as the Lion of Wisdom. Huishi-Zi was known for his remarkable dedication as a teacher, instructing as many as 11 classes each and every day. His tireless commitment to teaching made him truly stand out as the most exceptional among his peers. Disciples asked Master Tsongkhapa, "Could you perhaps tell us a bit more about it, in your own words?" Just like he did. He replied, "Let me go into retreat for a while and then we'll see." It seems that Master Tsongkhapa went into retreat for 20 days, and after 20 days he agreed to teach them all of the 15 truly great and important treatises, one after another, in a single day without missing a single detail. At that time, listeners came from all over. When they heard that he would teach 15 treatises at once, they were extremely happy and everyone was very focused. So I think the disciples at that time were truly remarkable. Otherwise, 15 treatises plus, when I looked at these 15 treatises, they included things like the 5 treatises of Maitreya and the 5 treatises on Madhyamaka, such as these Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, Entering the Middle Way, etc. These are all major treatises, and incredibly enough, he taught 15 of them in a single day. If we were to actually listen to that, how do you think we would feel? Ornament of Clear Realization, 400 verses. Then the 60 stanzas of reasoning, 15 treatises being taught at the same time. By the time the whole thing is finished, sometimes after the smaller treatises are completed, he would keep teaching, and in the end, His biography says there were 21 treatises, and there were days when he taught 21 treatises in a single day, 15 treatises for long-term study. Throughout the entire Dharma assembly, all of them were fully taught. So among the eminent monks and great masters of Tibetan Buddhism, there truly are many who have taught a great number of treatises, and these disciples were not like us at all, who, after listening for an hour, some Han region lay people, I listened to it for 3 hours on Sunday afternoon, and my butt hurts. My legs are already so numb. My legs are already feeling very stiff. The outside of the leg is soft, it's flesh, but inside it's bone, which is hard. Don't know how to analyze hard, soft. Never heard anyone say legs got hard or soft at teaching. It's because you yourself lack confidence in practicing the Dharma. If you were to watch a 3-hour movie marathon, you wouldn't feel tired at all. You might even keep going non-stop, and as long as your eyeballs haven't fallen to the floor, well, that's already pretty good in this kind of situation. You're actually completely focused. At that time, you don't need to eat, drink, or even go to the bathroom. You're very diligent. This is how people are nowadays. When it comes to worldly matters or messing around with sorts of things, no matter how much time they spend on it each day, it doesn't seem to matter. It's like a child being playfully mischievous outside, jumping and running around. No matter how many hours they spend, it doesn't matter at all. But if you ask them to really sit down and carefully do homework or read for just a single hour of time, no, can I come out here for a moment? Can I? So everyone is like this, especially ordinary people. When it comes to doing something meaningful, just listening to a little bit of teaching or practicing a little Dharma, all sorts of problems will inevitably start to arise, quite often at that particular moment in time, ultimately in the end, oftentimes. That is why I truly believe that we must, above all, have patience, real patience with the Dharma. We must have sincere and truly genuine faith, and not just think, I listened to a bit of Dharma today and now I'm a little tired. We shouldn't think like that. For example, if out of 24 hours, you spend 1 hour listening to the Dharma, then for the other 23 hours, it's fine, even if you don't attend any teachings. Nowadays, many people living in cities, for instance, you might use one afternoon in a week, and during that afternoon, you listen to 3 hours of teachings. Those 3 hours of teachings, consider how many hours there are in a week. So dedicating these 3 hours to the Dharma, I think, is not excessive. You also shouldn't think, I spent so much time just sitting and listening to the Dharma lately, my back is so stiff, I honestly can't even straighten up, right? As if just listening to teachings all the time would actually end up giving you some kind of spinal problems. So we must work on elevating the strength and resilience of our minds, as well as our emotional and mental resilience. If you really don't want to, then you also really can't just keep going on like this any longer, being disrespectful, withdrawn, drowsy, or falling asleep. This won't do. In Khenpo Ngakchung's teachings, it is said that if you truly don't want to listen in your heart, then you should get up yourself, but don't stray from the Dharma or from your teacher. Make 2 aspirations, and it's also fine to leave directly. Otherwise, developing wrong views about your teacher or the Dharma is more serious. There is such a teaching, and it truly is a key instruction. We listen to the Dharma not because we are forced to, but because we ourselves wish to attain liberation. But after listening, the meaning is indeed quite profound. For ordinary people, it's understandable if they don't grasp this point. However, as monastics listening to the Dharma, because you have already chosen this path, you have already given up all worldly family ties and everything else. Therefore, you should have the right attitude when listening to the Dharma. But nowadays, in big cities, these lay practitioners gather together to study on their own. I think this is really wonderful and very, very endearing. Some children without parents gather together on their own. We have to study hard and do our homework. When you put it this way, these children are especially lovable. It's true, when you have parents, they watch over you. But if you don't have parents, these children become self-disciplined. In fact, we ordinary people are just like children now. Without the guidance of a teacher, we won't do good deeds, this is certain. But now, there are some people whom I think are still doing very well. You need to keep going in the future. You can't just listen to 1 or 2 classes and think, now it's enough. Don't let yourself feel that kind of satisfaction. In life, after doing 1 or 2 things, do you think that's enough? It's not like that. You have to keep doing it, keep reinforcing it. In the same way, we must continue to make efforts in the Dharma with determination and consistency, always striving to improve. This is how we should think. If you get tired or uneasy, you must not give up, but should think like this. I have a precious human life. I was lucky to meet a good teacher of Dharma appearance. And I also have the excellent opportunity to hear profound teachings beyond expectations, gaining merit across countless eons. Thinking this way, I realize that I have indeed obtained a precious human life with leisure and opportunity. Without this human body, it would be impossible to practice or realize any Dharma at all. There are so many sentient beings all around us, such as various animals, hungry ghosts, as well as beings in the hell realms, and none of these beings have such an opportunity to practice the Dharma. Having a human body is not enough without a spiritual teacher. But we have already met a teacher who truly possesses the qualities of the Dharma. These are Dharma qualities. There are many qualities that a spiritual teacher should have. In many Gelug teachings, the main quality of a teacher is said to be renunciation of this life. This is very important, renunciation of this life. Some Kadampa teachings often emphasize that a teacher must have pure moral discipline. Whether one studies the Sutrayana or the Tantrayana pure, and in the teachings of many teachers, especially those of the Nyingma Master Patrul Rinpoche, it is said that the key quality of a teacher is if they possess bodhicitta. Furthermore, in Longchenpa's Great Chariot, the commentary on finding rest in the nature of mind, when discussing the qualities of a tantric teacher, the teacher should be proficient in tantra and have mastery of mantras. Attaining signs of warmth 8 qualities in total are described. According to Karma Ranz's lineage, purity is emphasized above all. Pure lineage is considered the most important quality of a teacher. There is the perspective, no matter what, as long as someone is truly proficient in Dharma and genuinely intends to benefit others, having such a teacher is indeed very fortunate for anyone. I often think to myself, in this brief life, to meet His Holiness, this truly is an immense blessing accumulated over countless eons. Otherwise, just look at the sentient beings around us today. I encountered evil-minded people. Moreover, because people lack discernment and wisdom, when they meet a false teacher, they even feel quite proud of it themselves. They often boast about who their teacher is. In fact, some teachers follow non-Buddhist paths. Now, in this degenerate age, all kinds of things can happen. But at this time, there truly are, like the Buddha himself, great accomplished masters and teachers with a living, authentic lineage, just like the Buddha. For many of us, there's absolutely no doubt about this. This is indeed widely recognized by everyone. So we should feel a sense of joy. And it has profound teachings, a complete combination of exoteric and esoteric Buddhism, with all teachings integrated harmoniously and without contradiction. It truly is indeed in this degenerate age, especially now when people's bodies and minds are extremely chaotic. In such a time, this is very rare and precious. Some lay practitioners are indeed aware of this. On one hand, we have the opportunity to listen to the teachings, and on the other, to practice them. The highly favorable and advantageous conditions in all aspects are especially and truly excellent, and such rare opportunities are genuinely hard to come by. Yesterday, I met a Dharma friend who used to stay in some monasteries where ascetic practices were carried out. He also stayed in monasteries that emphasized focused practice. But later, due to various circumstances, he came here. He personally felt that without listening and contemplating the teachings, it really doesn't work. For example, just practicing asceticism conduct itself is good, whether it's eating one meal a day or maintaining pure discipline. These are the foundation of all virtues. Daily follows Dharma and rules. In the mind, there's no real antidote to afflictive emotions. There were quite a few shortcomings in many aspects, so in the end, he didn't stay there either. Later, he went to monasteries to practice even basics of Dharma in these places. Were not particularly emphasized in terms of listening and contemplation, nor were they studied. There were many principles he didn't understand, just spending every day there reciting mantras. In this way, some afflictive emotions couldn't be resolved, and later he encountered this place. He understood some true Dharma principles, and at the same time, I also had the opportunity to engage in contemplative practice. So I think that we are not praising ourselves while disparaging others. This is truly how I feel right now. Perhaps it is related to the tradition cultivated by His Holiness over many years. In any case, I believe that first, at the very least, one must encounter a good teacher. Then his Dharma teachings should be complete, encompassing all the teachings of both the Sutrayana and Tantrayana. One must understand this sequence clearly. First listen and contemplate, and then practice. Then, in terms of conduct, the precepts simultaneously play a truly fundamental role. In this way, the Dharma we practice in this life is in every respect extremely complete. Therefore, we should feel a sense of joy and contentment in this lifetime and embrace happiness. This is also something that, over countless kalpas, for example, in the verse summary of the Perfection of Wisdom, within great Mahayana texts, it is said that encountering does not happen for no reason or by mere chance. Some monastics might think this way. I became a monk or nun by chance because I quarreled with my family. So the quarrel became my condition for learning Buddhism. It was my partner or my friends who created this situation for me. So I came here without any real cause or condition. It has cause, condition. The quarrel is merely a temporary auxiliary condition. Your true immediate cause in this moment, right now, at this very moment, right here, is that in past lives we formed connections with Mahayana Buddhism and practiced virtuous deeds in front of countless masters and Buddhas. That is why in this life we are able to hear these teachings. When the time comes, I can teach you the verse summary of the Perfection of Wisdom. Just hearing its sound by your ear, or holding this book in your hands without the causes from past lives, one would not be able to see it, hold it, or even hear it. So this is simply the law of cause and effect in Buddhism. This is what the Buddha taught. It is not something that is said by ordinary, unwise people in the world. Therefore, we should reflect carefully that this is good fortune from many lifetimes. Only because of this do we encounter such excellent Dharma in this life. We should think in this way. Because, indeed, this kind of Dharma is extremely rare to hear. In the past, the Buddha also said in the Sutra of the Causes and Conditions that have never been spoken of, it is truly hard and extremely rare to meet the Buddha in this world, and it is also very difficult to have the opportunity to hear the precious teachings of the Dharma. This means that encountering the Buddha is extremely difficult, and to hear and receive the Dharma is even harder. Then it says, human life is hard to preserve, and attaining the path is also difficult. This means that for most people, human lifespan is hard to guarantee and also very hard to maintain and preserve. It can easily be lost in a very short period of time. So what we have now is not easily obtained. We must be diligent. We should have a sense of joy, and we should have a spirit of diligence. Without such diligence, there will certainly be difficulties. Now, being able to hear such profound and wondrous Dharma is truly like having a meal after 100 hours. It can be said to be a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. How joyful this is. Because, as noted earlier, to encounter such profound Dharma, indeed, if you had a meal, say, for instance, after a full 100 hours, well, you would be extremely, truly, and genuinely conscientious, filled with great, overwhelming joy, and cherish it deeply, sincerely, and wholeheartedly with all your heart always. Therefore, in our lifetime, we must truly and deeply cherish the opportunity to hear and receive the Buddha's teachings. Because everyone's karma differs. Some people may spend their entire lives deeply immersed in the teachings of the Dharma, often through study and practice, just like our precious Guru, who was surrounded by the Dharma from a young age. From the Guru's biography, we know from the age of 5 or 6, all the way until his parinirvana, even during the 10 years of the Cultural Revolution, then the Dharma never truly left him. There really and truly are such remarkable, extraordinary, and inspiring individuals in this world, indeed. But nowadays, some people, if you take a look, you can observe for yourself just how many years of your life you have truly spent listening to the Dharma. I often reflect on this myself. I'm in my 40s, and perhaps I have had the most wonderful and rare good fortune to spend nearly 20 years in the presence of the Guru himself. But the future is hard to say. It's not the majority of my life yet, because when I was young, I spent my time studying and herding cattle. That's how those years passed. So the time I've spent listening to the Dharma isn't actually that long. I've told you before, for many teachings, it was also my first time. The last time I heard them in front of my teacher. Many of us are like this too. But we must ensure, if we can listen to the Dharma in the future, I hope everyone will still truly cherish it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a well-known or famous teacher. Many people think being famous is enough, even without real qualities. It shouldn't be like this. It should be that any Dharma teacher who possesses the proper qualities is suitable. If a teacher possesses the proper qualities, then you must have faith in the Dharma. Don't judge the person based on appearances, and don't use all kinds of discriminating thoughts to observe them. Take the Dharma itself as your guiding standard, or listen with a truly respectful and attentive mind, always being, therefore, for such wonderful teachings, it is only right to endure all kinds of hardships and difficulties, whether severe cold or intense heat, as one should. We come to listen, receive them, because while listening to the Dharma, on the one hand, you must be patient yourself, enduring all kinds of heat, hardship, as well as various worldly pressures and torments. Because nowadays, when some people are listening to the Dharma, may be under a lot of pressure and have to face many challenges. So patience here is also necessary. In daily life, always maintain a joyful attitude toward the Dharma. The Prajnaparamita Sutra already states that the mind is extremely important. For example, if I am happy in my heart, deep down inside, I can easily travel hundreds of yojanas without difficulty. During the journey, I truly, honestly won't feel any hardship at all whatsoever. But if you are unwilling in your heart, even when the distance you need to cover is quite short, such as taking just a brief walk from one spot to another, it can sometimes feel like a very, very long time. That's just how it is. And if you have a genuine sense of joy deep within your heart, for example, even if Mount Sumeru were completely destroyed, you think Mount Sumeru is just it's nothing remarkable, I should go. In the end, you will achieve your goal. No matter what it is, even attaining Buddhahood itself, you can accomplish it in your life. In the Prajnaparamita Sutra, when it talks about diligence, it places great emphasis on the power of the mind. This is indeed true. For example, if today I go to find someone in the world whom I especially truly and deeply, like someone who is truly special to me, then even if I have to walk a really long distance, it doesn't matter at all. As long as you genuinely have the time, you might not even feel any real suffering at all along the way. But if you're actually going to see an enemy or someone you really truly dislike, in times like these, even the smallest movement, such as walking just half a step, can feel so difficult and unbearable. So the power of the human mind is truly immense. Therefore, when we listen to the Dharma, no matter what kind of teaching it is, since the merits of the Buddha's teachings are so great and the causes and conditions are so extraordinary, how rare and precious is it for us to have such an opportunity in this lifetime? As long as I have this opportunity, I will seize it. No room for bargaining or hesitation. Can I please skip it? I'm really sick today because I'm not feeling well. Every time during class, some people always, whether with a Dharma teacher or not, nowadays, in cities, many lay practitioners are in charge, acting as coordinators, calling person in charge all day. Can I not come today? My friend is sick. Can I not come today? I'm not feeling very well myself. Can I not come today? I am a bit busy with work. Can I not come today? I have to go on a business trip. Can I not come today? My mother's health isn't very good, and she's not in a good mood either. Actually, today won't work for me. I have to go sightseeing around the city with a few other people. It's already been planned. All these excuses and questions people bring up, if they considered listening to the Dharma as the most important thing, then maybe they would never ever miss a single session. The other day, I met a civil servant in Beijing. She said that although some of the work for civil servants is rather troublesome and there are a lot of rules, their workplace is, you could say, extremely strict. But she still somehow finds a way because, as long as you're determined, everyone can absolutely be certain to eventually find a solution. At home, we can say many convenient words. At work, too, you can use various flexible methods. Anyway, from the very beginning until now, I haven't missed a single class. So it really is the power of determination. I can feel it myself. For example, now that I teach you the Dharma every day, I first set my own priorities. If I don't make this time available for myself, I would be busy daily. People's thoughts distract. today I ponder this, tomorrow that. If I go here today, go there tomorrow, I definitely wouldn't be able to give a single class. But except rare cases, if I make this my top priority, there will be time for Dharma. For every Dharma friend, it's the same when listening to the teachings. As long as you make this matter the most important part of your work in your life, truly, then you can make time for it. Even if you are sick today, really unwell, and need an IV drip, you can bring the IV to class and hear the lesson. That's actually a really very easy thing to do. Therefore, the power of determination is truly something that everyone, without exception, must work to strengthen. If you don't strengthen it, and instead treat it as a kind of pressure or a burden, then the results simply won't be good either. Your actions will also end up being improper in various ways. Therefore, I sincerely hope when listening to the Dharma, you don't feel annoyed, but feel joyful. The great masters and eminent monks of the past truly listened to the profound teachings and deep wisdom with such heartfelt joy and reverence. I've mentioned this before, haven't I? There was a Lama named Teacher Rinpoche in our monastery here, was truly remarkable. But his joy for the Dharma was truly beyond words for anyone to describe. Yesterday, a few Dharma friends and I talked together about some of his truly interesting, memorable, and very meaningful stories. Although he was quite well known locally, he didn't care for fame, wealth, or any of those things at all. When I hadn't ordained yet, while I was still a layperson in Luhuo when he was in Gelag Monastery, at that time, the political climate was still very tense, and no one dared to admit to studying Buddhism. At that time, I had the opportunity to get close to him, and when I did, for the first time, he didn't care about anything else. He only really, truly cared deeply about listening to the Dharma. Back then, it was true. If someone was giving a teaching and someone else was simply listening, they could be arrested and put in prison. It was that tense. But even then, he would go to a geshe to listen to teachings on the precepts. When he came back, there were always quite a lot of guests. No matter what the guests said, he didn't seem particularly focused on them. He would keep reflecting over and over on the Dharma he had just heard. But I didn't feel it. At that time, I honestly thought that maybe every single practitioner would be just like this. But as I reflected more, I realized if people like us were in such an environment and era, would we go attend and reflect and keep attending teachings? Would we have that kind of courage? Probably not. Even if you did go to listen to teachings, you might not feel any joy. Everyone should have a sense of joy when attending teachings. I hope starting tomorrow, the Dharma teachers here and those who are listening carefully and attentively to the Dharma teachers should also have a heart filled with joy and happiness. When I go to attend teachings today, I should feel a really genuine happiness inside. We should be grateful to our Dharma teachers and value the Dharma treasures. We ought to have this kind of mindset. Otherwise, it's like, the Dharma teachers are such a hassle and the Dharma itself is so difficult. Wouldn't it be so much more comfortable to just stay at home and sleep alone? That's what I really find the happiest thing in my life. But this wish has never truly been fulfilled. Can I just pay some money to have someone recite sutras for me so I don't have to actually attend the teachings myself and still get rid of these obstacles? This is actually a very frightening thing. Truly, it is important to remember that many of us genuinely need to have a joyful and open heart, especially when we are listening to the Dharma. All right, well, that's all for today's talk.
Om